Call meeting to order Monday, May 16th. Roll call, please.
Yeah.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Troy Boone. Troy Doden.
Here.
Art Schott.
Here.
Teresa Sweden.
Here.
Mike Stevens.
Here.
Agenda was sent out. Are there any modifications to the agenda? No?
Did you want to add yours to the agenda, Art? Under discussion items?
For
Discussion items?
for discussion items, I'd like to put something down.
Okay.
Pledge of allegiance.
Anyone else? Teresa?
Under old business, under concession stand lease, we may have to go into executive session, so just put the executive session for the lease itself.
Would that be for proprietary time?
Contractual negotiations.
Any other adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as corrected or adjusted?
Motion to adopt the agenda as changed.
Second.
Motion by Tiedemann and seconded to adopt the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Minutes for May 2nd, 2022 are sent out. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mayor, I'd like to just clarify under the 15-mile-per-hour speed limit. My motion was to keep it between 9th and 10th Street and remove the one children present. I just feel the way it reads, it kind of reads that it's going to stay from 8th to 13th. So I just wanted to clarify my motion was to keep it from 9th to 10th Street at 15 miles per hour, removing the one children present, and putting a timer on the flashing light.
Isn't it currently from 8?
No,
Is it?
no, it was originally from 9th to 10th, then we made a change to 8th to
Okay.
13th, but I made the motion to bring it back to 9th to 10th Street.
Okay.
Yeah, just to keep the existing signs where they're
Okay.
at. So,
So the adjustment would be the first part of the minutes. Under department head, city administrator reports, substituting 8th and 13th with 9th and 10th.
yeah. that
There's
would
no
be-
9th Street on that.
Well, okay, so just to leave existing signs.
Okay, because like I said, we have no 9th on.
Sorry, I
Crossing
was,
Main.
the police officer or the police department put on Facebook 9th to 10th. To leave existing signs and just remove the one children present. Everything else was fine. I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't saying from 8th to 13.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the edited minutes for May 2nd, 2022?
Motion to approve the amended minutes from May 2nd.
Schott second.
Motion by Tiedemann, seconded to approve the amended minutes from May 2nd, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Approved. Public hearings, rezoning of Western Tri-State Ready Mix to rezone lot 1 of Dolan Addition in the southeast corner of section 32, township 96. North range 50, do I have to read all that? For the record, Tom?
Pardon me?
Do I have to read that whole?
Just the title, which I think you already read, so.
And we're just considering a first reading of ordinance 2022-02 to rezone and amend zoning regulations. Is that part of this?
Industrial.
Tom, he was asking a question about if that was part of it.
This is the first reading.
Yes. Yeah, it's been recommended from planning and zoning to do that. It requires 2 readings and then a vote, second reading.
So don't take any action. Nobody has any, or if there's no adjustments to the reading of ordinance 2022-02, then this would be a first, and then we would make a second reading and vote at the next meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's submit plans. Next public hearing regarding the issuance of lease revenue certificates of participation for the ball field complex. Can you explain this a little bit?
Tom Grimmon is here with Mr. Collier, Doherty for Colliers.
Right.
So he's here to kind of give you a little background and kind of let you know where we're going. As far as the ball field complex, we want to make sure we have the funding in place so we can move forward with the
Right.
all the other services.
All right, good. Tom Grimmon from Color Securities now. I'm sporting the logo and the shirt. And so hopefully you get to know us a little better. It used to be Doherty and Company years ago, a couple years ago, and been there for about 30 years. It'll be 30 years in July, so it's hard to believe. I've been around quite as long as Art has, but getting close. So we're having a public hearing here. We've done something a little different this time. Normally just come in with a resolution and pass it, but some of the questions were asked about, well, what's going to happen at ball fields, or are you going to have any kind of agreements with outside agencies? So what we've ended up doing is we're doing what they call kind of a nonprofit type of resolution here, for lack of a better word. So like if you're gonna have an agreement with someone to run the ball fields, a nonprofit, have concessions, whatever, you don't have to worry about the tax status of these bonds by having this public hearing. So you're gonna have a public hearing, what we're having right now, and if anyone wants to speak up against the public hearing and say, hey, we don't want you to do this, you know, you can listen to them and move on from there, you know, but normally these public hearings just kind of happen and then we just move on to the passing of the resolution. But it is by law that we have to have this public hearing. So it was published in the newspaper, right, Elaine? It was published, right? Yeah, so it was published in the newspaper and we met all the timelines for having the public hearing. The one nuance to this is that so you can go and do your contract now with any nonprofit. You still can't do it for a for-profit. That would jeopardize your tax status for the bonds. That's why this has to be done. Your bonds are sold as tax-exempt certificates and to the public, and we're meeting that hurdle right here with this public hearing if you're going to have outside agencies kind of run your ball fields without having to go back to attorneys all the time. So maybe takes a little money out of Tom's pocket, but right now we're covering the bases by having the public hearing, as long as you just stay with non-for-profits or non-profit agencies running the facilities. There's a big issue with revenue sharing, and even though you probably meet the minimum test, what they call the safe harbor test, because nobody's making a ton of money on these, but they're really looking at, you know, you think of like Kauffman Field or Twin Stadium or something like that, where, you know, concessions are big money, right? So, but those bonds were sold tax exempt. IRS doesn't care. They don't care if this is little tiny ball fields in Beresford, South Dakota, as opposed to, you know, the Twins ball field up in Minneapolis. They still kind of look at things based on a tax exempt basis, and the money and how that is handled. So anyway, again, I'm kind of rambling, but we're taking care of that using nonprofit, the nonprofit resolution we're doing here, and we're taking care of that, so you don't have to go back to bond counsel every time you need to have a contract looked at, as long as they're not-for-profit type organizations. For-profits, you would be able to rent it out. I shouldn't say rent it out. It's all about revenue sharing. So as long as the nonprofits are handling your concession stands, then you're fine. I guess that's the short end of the stick. You don't jeopardize your tax exempt status on the bonds.
We need a motion?
Well, just quickly, the amount that we put in here is $3 million plus the construction costs and plus cost of issuance. So that's what we said for the construction of the field and the engineering fees, up to $3 million, and then the cost of issuance would be above and beyond that. And that would include the reserve account that we're required to keep. So.
Right, and I guess I would just, before we do that, actually, I'd like to turn it back over to the mayor and, you know, and ask anybody if they have any questions for the public hearing part of this. And if nobody does, then we'll go into the resolution part of it, I guess, is what I'm looking at. Does that make sense? All right. I don't, like I said, normally nobody wants to stand up, but you're supposed to give someone an opportunity to do it. If no one gets up and has any issue with it, then we'll move on to the resolution, I guess, is the plan.
Anyone in the public that wants to speak on it? Questions or comments? Okay.
All right. Is that good, Tom? Does that help you?
What's that?
Does that work? Did I kind of explain that well enough about the public hearing side of it? All right. So we're on the public hearing side of that for that. So you've got the resolution I saw was part of your packet. As Jerry pointed out, basically under section, the real meat and potatoes of this is under section 2.01, where it sets the dollar amount. The dollar amount in that third sentence or third line down sets the construction amount to $3 million. And then we have what they call the cost of issuance that gets added into that, nothing over 2%, so nothing greater than $60,000. And then your funds sufficient to fund a reserve fund also. So
Reserve fund, what, 10%? Give or take?
it's up to 10%. Have they seen numbers yet, Jerry, from the previous runs?
So, no.
You want me to pass out a set of numbers? You kind of go over them real quick so we can kind of look and see. That's what I sent you, so you've seen numbers. Sorry, I'm throwing those at you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot.
Good job, good job.
All right, Brian.
Sure, yes, and I can put in
For collecting homework for these guys or not.
I just tried it, so.
All right. So again, this is the one that's actually numbered page 1 or page 2 in the packet, but page 1 at the bottom. That's your debt service schedule. This is what we're looking at right now, given where the market's at. As you probably, many of you know, the interest rates are trending upward right now. We've actually kind of leveled off a little bit here in the last week or so, but you know, that could change tomorrow. So we're looking at right now, you go down below, you see an average coupon almost at 3.81% if you go down to the yield statistics and read average coupon third line down. So it's about 3.81%, which is, I don't know, we've been doing a few, not COPs, but some non-rated stuff, and that's right in line with what, you know, we've gotten bids on other projects. So about $240,000, $235,000 a year. That was the range we're trying to stay in. The nuance to this, if you want to go to page 2, and I tried to explain this to Jerry in the email, and I don't know if he caught it, but I want to make sure that we all understand this. By doing this, what I call 501c3 resolution, which is a little different than what we've done in the past, just to make sure we've dotted all of our I's, we crossed all of our T's so the IRS doesn't come here. There is a 2% limit that you can do cost of issuance. Normally, you can do all your cost of issuance in a bond issue within the bond issue. But this is kind of like, you know, when you go in and you get a home mortgage and then they want you to put 10% down or something like that before the home mortgage. We don't have to do 10%, but there is a share of this that has to be provided for by the city because we're over the 2% limit. And that's where that, if you're on page 2 at the top under sources, you see a line there, a 4-line down underneath source of funds. You see an additional required equity contribution by the city of about $18,000. So at closing, the city would have to come up with that $18,000 to offset the cost. We can't, it's funny, you can't just lower the amount of bonds that you want by $18,000. It's a formula that works off the 2% cost. You would still, even if you lowered the dollar amount of how much you want for your construction fund, you're still going to end up paying that 2%, anything over that 2%. So it isn't a 1-for-1, if you know what I'm trying to make my point here. So it doesn't help you by doing that. So we just left it at 3%. I didn't try and figure out a number where you guys wouldn't have to provide it a number above that 2%. I didn't even go there. I just ran the numbers as they fell. And then you can see down below under uses of funds, you can see the construction fund is $3 million, which is what we're looking for. Debt service reserve fund, the DSRF, debt service reserve fund is, and in this case, I think Art said 10%, but in this case, 10% is above what the IRS will let you have, which is good. What we've done here is the next test is what they call maximum annual debt service. So that you see that 242,407.50 is, if you looked on the previous page, is the maximum annual debt service. So that any one year that's outstanding is 242,407.50. So that's the test. And you can only have the lesser of 10% or max annual debt service. And then you have your cost of issuance, underwriter's discount, and then because we sell bonds in $5,000 increments, there's a rounding piece, and that in essence comes back to you as part of your construction fund. So that's kind of quick finances. The page 3 kind of breaks down the additional cost of issuance, bond counsel, trustee fees, and your trustee origination fee. So that's the numbers in a nutshell. That's how we get to the $3,260,000. Most of that above the $3 million, of course, is the $242,000 for the reserve fund. You hold the reserve fund, and you usually use the reserve fund to make the last payment. But it's held in an account. Up until recently, you couldn't make any money on that, but as interest rates keep climbing, especially from the Fed, you can probably here in a year or so be able to invest that at a rate higher than it is today. Probably not as high as that you'll have on the bonds. So those are the numbers. Any questions about the numbers and how I got to them?
Are there penalties to prepay?
Well, good question. So there's no penalty to prepay, but there will be a call period where you can't prepay. And usually that's six to 7 years. Kind of depends on where the market's at. Used to be a straight 10 years, just kind of across the board, but after 2010, it got a little less. Now, we may see it get stretched back out to 10 years. I mean, when I first started in 92, we had 10-year calls that were hard. I mean, nothing went below 10 years, and you had a premium on it, 101 or 102, 1% or 2% on them. I don't think we're heading back there. I hope not. But right now, what we've done in the last 6 months or last 4 months through this whole inflation thing is still a par call, 7 years. So
7 years before we can prepay?
Yeah, before you can prepay. So normally we would tell folks is if you're really set on prepaying, it's just set the money aside, make it designated, just tell Elaine to put it in the books, and you guys can just hold on to that. You can invest it because it's not what they call an invested sinking fund. So if you can make some interest on it, you can invest it, and you don't have to restrict the interest rate on that either. So you just hold on to it until year 7, and then you can just call whatever amount of bonds you have saved up money for if you get to that point. Oh yeah, Mitch, the numbers.
So we need a motion on this time?
That we have handy.
Can this be a general motion, or we got specific on the numbers?
Well, it's adopting the resolution,
Yeah,
which has the numbers in there, so.
So I make a motion.
Did you see that
Resolution
page?
2022-09, resolution relating to the issuance of certificates of participation authorizing the execution and delivery of ground lease and easement agreement and lease purchase agreement, and approving and authorizing execution of related documents as was stated.
Motion by Shot and seconded to consider resolution 2022-09 relating to the issuance of certificate of participation, relating to the issuance of certificates of participation. Any further discussion?
When do we have to come up with this money for the?
Well, when we get to the sale, which you'll publish, I'm not sure when you'll publish this resolution, but when you publish it, then we have 20 days. So we'll start on the process, if the motion passes today, we'll start on the process of putting the offering document together for it, for the city. And then that'll probably take 3 weeks or so, and then we'll be ready to sell once the bonds, or once that 20-day period, referral period ends.
Okay.
And then so, like, that's the long answer. So when that period ends and we sell the bonds, they'll probably be, I don't know, do you guys need the money like right away, or how soon do you need it? We can delay the closing for 45 days. So if you don't need the money right away, if you're not paying design fees or something like that, or you're paying those out of cash, you can reimburse yourself for that. But the best, what we're recommending folks is, even if they don't need the money for 6 months from now, is to secure the interest rate now as fast as we can.
Right.
And then just try and delay the closing as long as we can, and then still take possession of your money even before final design. I'm talking final design for like schools. I'm not sure what the ball fields, what their timetable is for getting started, but I would still recommend that you kind of lock the rates in. So if we're looking at beginning of June, maybe pricing, and then 2 months from there. So August, you'd have to come up with the money.
Okay.
I guess that would be my guess, my best guess. Early August.
Does that work with our timeline here?
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
And you can run it, like I said, I mean, the resolution authorizes you to do that, so that'll happen in closing. So it doesn't.
We'll publish next week and then, so.
Yeah, it doesn't. If you are dead set on running through bills or whatever, or treating it as a bill, I mean, you can do that. Just make sure we're ahead of schedule on that, because on the day of closing, it has to be there. Normally, the resolution takes care of it. It's already authorized the city to do that, to pay anything above that 2%. The resolution handles that. But
It's nice to have all the money that we're drawing off the same one, so
Right.
it doesn't have to do it out of one account and try to shift it all over, so. Once we start paying Banner, because those will be the first people we start paying, and that will probably be
I'm sure.
within 60 to 90 days.
For the schematics. and
Right.
paper.
But they're gonna be starting to work on it.
Further discussion? All in favor of resolution 2022-09, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
you too. Enjoy some of this before.
Sun goes down.
Business to be heard. Any questions?
Okay. First of all, thank you for giving us the time to share our thoughts. My name is Craig Christensen. With me are a couple of the up and growing numbers of people who like to play pickleball. Chris Hart, Larry Larson. As you may or may not know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States. Just look to Sioux Falls. My grandchildren requested paddles for Christmas. My daughter says she can whoop me. And you're looking at old people. It's truly a sport for all ages, man or woman. What we're dealing with right now are 3 makeshift pickleball courts. First one, I'm just not in any specific order. Legends of Gold has allowed us to use one of their buildings. Larry was nice enough to paint out a pickleball court. It's not ideal, but it is something that they can use in wintertime. I prefer Texas to play pickleball. The ceiling's too low, the walls are too close. You can't play an actual real game of pickleball. Second option is going over to Alcester. They have converted one of their unused, or maybe the only unused gym that they have. I think they have a pretty good participation. That said, going over there, you can actually play a pretty good game of pickleball. You know, hit ceilings and you have room. Our third option brings us to our tennis courts, which have been deteriorating for 30-some years. I believe the last people that probably played it regularly would be me and Tom. Again, it's a makeshift court with duct tape on a surface that is not conducive to pickleball, with a net that is not standard. And then you have the problem with the weeds. So you have a lot of issues with a little ball like this that doesn't bounce the way it should off the surface that is out there now. And so it makes for kind of a difficult situation. Now that's the bad news. The good news is you have a fence, you have lighting, you have the base. I'm just going to hand these out. These are pickleball court specs. Pickleball court is 44 by 20. And then you need a little cushion, because I'm going to make Tom run all over the place. So ideally, 34 by 64, you could live with 30 by 60. I don't pretend to be a pickleball contractor. I don't have any specific numbers or any kind of numbers whatsoever. Like I said, a lot of things are in place which would significantly decrease the cost of putting in permanent nets. You can convert one tennis court into 2 pickleball courts. You could actually leave the other tennis court if anyone would ever decide to use it again. There's certain materials, I mean, you can go top of the line or whatever. But I guess our thoughts here for us is, what we don't have in this town is an actual pickleball court. We make the, and I appreciate what Legends of Gold did, and Alcester accommodates us, and you're willing to let us paint or put tape down and use the courts as a pickleball court. But what we really need is an official pickleball court with a new surface conducive to the way pickleball should be played. As I said, it's the fastest growing sport in the country. It's going to be an official event in the 2028 Olympics. It's not a fad. It's not going away. Again, people of all ages, male, female, or whatever they call themselves now, it's a game for everybody. So I guess what we're hoping you would consider is that perhaps somehow, some way, you could find, like I say, I don't know exactly what it costs. It wouldn't be a whole lot. A few $1,000s to resurface one of the tennis courts, convert it into 2 pickleball courts, so we would actually have something real to play on. And do you have anything else to say, guys?
Well, I just was curious. I was really interested that the kids in school play pickleball. It's on their curriculum. And when we got our nets out at Legends of Gold, we got them from some leftovers from the school. So the kids are playing too. The other thing is I did check into costs, and those rubber mats would have to be removed from one court, and then concrete put down, which would be, it was estimated $3,000 to $5,000 for a full tennis court, so it's probably about $3,000 for one of the 2 courts to be converted. And then you buy this acrylic paint, which costs about $100. And we could put that on, and we could put on the lines. So I'm thinking it would probably cost maybe $4,000 to convert one of the tennis courts into pickleball. And I haven't been here more than 3 years, but I haven't seen anyone playing tennis. And like.
Well, there's a
when we go to
reason the
Alcester-
weeds are growing up through the surface.
Yeah, when we go to Alcester, one time there were 18 people that showed up. So there's a lot of interest. And, I don't know, just,
Was there any questions or thoughts you might have that we can maybe answer? Or,
Have you approached the school yet with the new basketball arena they're putting in?
I'm sorry?
They're putting a new gym in over at the school. Have you approached them about putting indoor courts in?
No. I wasn't aware of that.
Well, if they're playing it in school, I would imagine they'd already have the materials and allow you guys to set up in there.
one of the players, I don't know who it was, said that we didn't have access to the school. That the adults didn't.
I visited with the athletic director, and, he mentioned one time, well, we maybe could work with you, but you have to work around our schedule.
Yeah,
And, then it means putting up the net, taking it down. And he actually said, why don't you go out and visit with Terry out of Legends of Gold, and he was good enough to, but that's a 12-foot ceiling, so you can't lob or anything like that. You can play a lot of the game, but we're not asking for anything indoor, it'd be an outdoor. Because when the weather gets nice, it's fun to be outside too, But it's a growing sport. Everybody thinks it's an old person's game, and a lot of old people play it, but the number one female player in the world is 16 years old, so it brings in all ages.
So what we're asking, if there's any possible way you could divert or allocate or look into possibility of resurfacing one of the tennis courts to give us two, I think it'd be well worth your while.
So if I just question on which direction, would you be going the opposite direction as the current tennis court then?
Well, as you see there, the actual court is 20 by 44, I think. Didn't you say, Larry, we could build two running the same direction they are?
You'd want to run in the same direction.
Which is north and south.
You don't want to run east and west because of the sun
Okay,
coming up and going down.
that was my concern if somebody did show up to play tennis and they're playing
No,
north
no,
and
you
south,
would
you
take-
guys are going. So I think,
I measured it off yesterday. Ideally would be a few more feet, but we can put two courts on and leave 8 feet from the back line to the fence, 8 feet from the back line of the same court to what would be the tennis net, which I would want to leave up for a backstop for each court. You see what I'm saying? As far as, but you can put two courts running north and south.
okay.
And I will say this, sometimes it's hard to get somebody to try it. I haven't had anybody out there yet that didn't like it after they tried it. And the next thing you know, they're buying paddles, and it's a fun sport, and it's good exercise, yet it's not running around and kill yourself,
It's good for us.
you should try it, let us know how it is.
Give me that paddle. They didn't get to school 24 hours. I don't want to hear them that far. The school didn't know.
So I had somebody call me from the community here a month or two ago who had a group of friends that also wanted pickleball court.
It's been 40 years.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. Mike and I were in Wichita, I went to Wichita, Kansas. Mike wasn't with me, excuse me. And we stayed next to a place, it was called Chicken and Pickle. And we couldn't figure out where the chicken and pickle combination came from till the next day. We woke up, they had about a dozen pickleball courts.
Yeah.
And a restaurant. And it was indoor and outdoor.
They do it a little different in Texas. It's a brewery and a pickleball system, which I would prefer over chicken and pickleball. And winery and pickleball.
You've got the lighting system out there, all that stuff is already there. The one thing that you might want to consider is a wind guard around the fence, because that ball.
You definitely need
doesn't work
wind
real well,
screens.
It's a wiffle ball.
There's no alcohol in the parks, right? We don't have. Well, I'm just saying, Brian, no.
I don't think there's no problem with wind around here.
No wind problems?
Yeah, there's no wind problems around here.
So we actually talked about tennis with a people out here because Greg brought up that the surface, obviously, we all know is not great, and that plastic is warped and cracked and everything else. When I got that call, I talked to, I think it was Troy Boone, and his suggestion at the time was maybe we need to get Greg Bates involved and see what his ideas might be with the courts and how to, because I think Greg was also maybe approached by some folks, as our parks director, about pickleball.
If the committee review it,
Yeah, can I get that? Yeah.
if the committee review it, correct?
Because nobody's using the tennis courts.
No, I wasn't joking, Tom and I may have been the last ones that use it regularly. There's a reason weeds are growing, and
We used to play
and
basketball.
we're thankful that we can still use it, I mean, we do, but obviously, ideally, we would like a real
You know, that type of surface, the reason there's, you know, obviously dust blows, fills in, next thing you know, you got some weeds coming through. We take the weed eaters out there and weed them off, you know, but,
I said years ago, I played basketball up there a number of times, and you couldn't hardly bounce a basketball because it's just dead spots. And
right.
No,
Oh, yeah,
it's-
we find that with that pickleball,
Yeah.
sometimes there's, the bounce is not, it should be there, it's not, you know.
But if you would considering it, we would love that.
I don't see nothing wrong, like you said, have Greg check it out.
I think the sport courts are past their prime. I mean, it's been in there for 30+ years. You can't even find anything to match them anymore, so I think you're better off just tearing the whole thing out and then looking at what you got for a base underneath there and then moving forward. Because the fencing is good and the lights are good, and we can fix the fencing, whatever that is, but the lighting's good, but then we can just set it up for pickleball unless you think we need to move forward with more tennis courts. But like I think Greg said, he hasn't seen anyone, nor have I heard of anyone playing tennis out there at all.
I think 30+ years is giving it a lot of credit. When I was in high school, which maybe the oldest of you were in diapers then, tennis was a high school sport. And actually went to the state track meet in tennis. We played tennis out there at that point in time.
I don't mind any one court, we'll check out one court and the cost and go from there.
I think a year ago, Greg was talking about the need of just maybe demoing the whole concrete and putting a whole new.
I think it might need that. We obviously the reason the weeds are there is because the cracks underneath there, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So we just have to take a look at that. Maybe we can get through it for a little bit, set one up, or try to figure out what we can need to do as far as the concrete. Obviously, it's a bigger concrete pad if we replace the whole thing, so we just have to see what that cost would be.
If the courts are put on the present tennis court, it would be preferable to go north-south, because the diagram you have shows putting 4 courts on, but those would end up east-west.
That's what I think we should do, is at least, if we're not planning on it, let's just take it up and go from there.
Tear out the whole concrete, the whole thing.
Well, let's start with all just the sport court, get that out of the way. We can't find pieces for it, you know, they're not gonna fit, they've all been expanded and contracted so many
Let's see if we
times.
can resurface one of the.
At least one of them this year, and see like that.
Yeah, let's visit with Greg about that.
We'll get our committee on it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming here.
In the meantime, could I ask permission if I would want to paint lines on one of the courts that we would use now?
You want to close that?
I don't see a problem.
Greg's okay with it. I think he's talked to him already about
Because
it.
we've had tape down, but you know, then sometimes they'll come in there and people rip the tape up.
You're on that committee, what do you think?
If nobody's using it for tennis.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'll probably paint lines then maybe this week or next week on at least one of them.
Good
Thank you.
job, Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So next visitor we heard, Mr. Seeley from the Beresford Ambulance.
Hey, good evening. I guess my question would be, why is it called pickleball? But, sounds tempting. So good evening, my name is Eli Seeley, I'm the director of the Beresford Ambulance Service. As of about a year ago, I'm joined by Bob James, who's the president of our oversight board. A proposal that I initially had discussed with the mayor and then subsequently with the public safety group is that we are interested in the acquisition of a tool that would enable us to more easily load patients onto our ambulance. We've come to discover that all the associated ambulance services in our area, to include Vibrant Hurley, who has a very old ambulance, Alcester Hudson, use an automated tool. So if we have smaller patients, or excuse me, smaller volunteers that are part of our service, that would potentially be on the working end of bringing a large patient to the ambulance, they are required to hold the back of the cot as the cot is loaded. There's some automation already built into the cot. We did find, after the first meeting with public safety, we did find out that there were some grant monies available. That process is, the grant application is in process. There is some money that was originally given to us by the Beresford Area Foundation that we can redirect. It was initially acquired for communications, but the communications were funded by a state grant. So these monies, after consultation with the foundation, would be now used for the acquisition of the top loader. So page 1 is just a brief letter with some the same letter that I presented to public safety. The second page that you've got there is the proposal. The proposal with some basics, and then the last page that you'll find is a quote. The tool is a few less thousand than we initially expected. Resellers are selling this top loader, this automated top loader, for about $33. From Stryker, we can acquire directly from Stryker. They're selling it for about $24,000. So based on the $3,000 from the foundation, the $3,500 that we could bring in from the South Dakota Workmen's Compensation Fund, and then a contribution from the ambulance service and our general fund, and we'll make our finances available if you so request. But we would like to ask for about $9,400 to acquire this tool. The benefit to the community is that we've got a tool that not only enhances the ability for volunteers to load patients in a more efficient and more timely manner, but it also enhances the way patients, as they are put into the ambulance, it increases safety, decreases the risk of back injuries. Each back injury, according to OSHA, costs an organization about $64,000. And so the top loader, with the cost that we're looking at.
You got 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You said 9,400, and your paperwork says 9,612.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, 9,612 and 13 cents.
Okay, now, does that annual maintenance, who pays for that 178?
That would be yes.
Oh, so
That's part of
the
the
total
maintenance.
amount you want from the city is $9,612.13.
Yes, sir.
Eli, you also mentioned that there's a grant in process. Is that included in these numbers, or?
So the grant is it's listed under, when you see funds, it's the South Dakota Workers' Compensation Fund.
Okay.
And so, yes, that paperwork is in progress. Brad Wilson, who manages that fund, and we have had some contact with him in the past, he made it sound like it was a 99.9%, as long as the funds are still there. And so we did inquire with the state about potential funding, whether it be through EMS or Department of Health. They're in the process of funding a replacement for all of our monitors that we use in the ambulance service. So each one of those monitors is $15,000 to $25,000 monitor. They're in the process of replacing those. So right now they're not lending any other additional funding to other pieces of equipment. Some of the statistics, we do about 300 to 350 calls a year. Some of them are as mundane as whether it be someone has fallen, you're not sure if they're hurt or not. Health calls, is someone is still okay. Calls as serious as the one that happened right in front of Casey's the other night, and as anybody that happened to see images from that incident, fairly significant. So we do a lot of I-29. The interesting thing about I-29 is that it's not an even nice flat surface, as the mayor knows very well. And so getting them out of the ditch and then onto the cot and then into the ambulance as quickly as possible, it's a good thing.
I'm assuming this money would have to come from contingency.
Yeah, we've already spent that a long time.
Well, that's what I mean, like, so what's even left?
We get the 30,000 and we got to clear that on the polls, so.
On the poles for the ball field?
Yeah.
What about the liquor store? Liquor store gonna be put on the fund or what?
Right. I mean, did we kind of talk about the liquor store sales?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think we gave the ambulance too much money in the last, 5, 10 years?
No, we do. So we're a group of compensated volunteers, a nonprofit, and we do bill for our services. So that allows us to sustain all of our operating costs, so the acquisition of supplies, communications equipment. We try to seek public funding where and when possible, but for the most part, unlike the fire department, we do, because of our ability to build, using
Well, this is like a one-time deal shot in a long time, right?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, my other question is, how fast you need the $9,000? Is there any way we can make payments or break it down, or, I mean, what's the situation, how fast you need it?
Well, I can take over from that, and we can work with, if you're willing to share any amount of money.
Boy, you gotta ask Elaine, because she's the boss.
When you send the check, we'll be fine. We're going to probably purchase a cot loader, no matter, what the circumstances are. We have this grant money. The foundation, when I wrote them a letter, I was supposed to summarize how we've used their money rather than the state and other agencies paid for the radio communication project that we've asked for money for. And then I mentioned this in my note to them, and they graciously came back with a nice note saying that we could keep the money that we had been given to us last year as a grant. So we have that $3,000. And we are not a hardship case as far as finances either. Nathan has our 990 there, and we're very stable. But we do rely on, getting paid by the clients that we have. And we were talking about this earlier. Probably a third of ours gets written off because many times interstate cases and we don't know anything about them. Not always written off. Our interstate might be some in town too, but whatever the case, if we make 200 runs a year, that doesn't mean that we took in $200,000 in income. We do watch it very closely. We're on top of our finances.
I guess I supporting them. We need to find out where the money's coming from. So, if
you guys can, we're just, I guess this might be a request that you guys can certainly work on if you so desire. You don't have to.
I guess I'm thinking maybe our finance committee can meet, that's Mike and Troy and myself, and kind of review what's available and where we're at with all the different departments and the contingency fund stuff, and then come.
We appreciate any amount that might be available. When we requested $5,000 from the foundation, and they gave us $3,000, which we graciously appreciate.
We can work some amount, right? I mean,
Right, yeah, no, I think
we're
we.
willing to work some amount, we're not giving you zero. Just give us time to go over the books.
We appreciate that very much.
It's just, if our contingency's already been used, then we're gonna have to kind of figure out where we're gonna pull this
We appreciate what
from.
you're doing for the city. Thank you.
Have you reached out to the counties at all, like Lincoln County?
Union County treats us very well.
Good.
Lincoln County does nothing at all. I don't know what their thoughts are, but Union County gives us $10,000 a year, so we really don't feel we should tap them anybody.
Another thing, I just wonder if you put this out to the public, if you wouldn't get donations for something like this too.
We have not ever done that yet. It's a possibility.
Because to me, I think if you have a goal in place, people would be more apt to give.
That's a good possibility, right?
We did have a quick conversation the other day. The one thing that the fire department does do, and they do very well, is they have several fundraising events throughout the year.
We talked about
Between the
pancakes.
pancakes, they had 350. The casino night, some of those other events. Chase the Chief is now the pops over, getting to be almost 20,000. And so they do a good job of steadily adding events to the calendar. We've fortunately never been in a position where we've had to do the same, and it's not that we couldn't, right? Because I think you're right, if there was a measurement tool out there that said, this is the amount that we're aiming for.
And then the public also knows that you're trying to make it a better organization and keep everyone safe.
Yeah, we can meet as a committee and figure out Elaine knows where all the money's buried, so.
And we will look at some other options as well, because like I said, we will purchase one. And our ultimate goal would be to have two, because we have a lot of people that they aren't strong people. And we have patients that sometimes require a lot of help, and then all we have to do is call for extra help, and the police or someone is there to help us too. But this, when you think about the fact that you roll the cart out to this device, and then it brings it up, puts it in the ambulance, and the practicality of it and the realistic really seems to make a lot of sense. And there's always a price tag on everything. It's this year, and then 2 years down the road, when something else, and it's another $25,000, but we've always been able to master it. Townships are fairly good to it, some of them also, as far as this time of year. So we appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.
It's a good organization and definitely necessary. We want to keep it, that's for sure. Any other questions?
I just got one.
Does our committee
Go ahead.
decide?
No, I just got one question. You mentioned Tarzan. Is there any way you could get together with Tarzan, like Elaine made a comment, where you can raise money for the fire department and the ambulance, joint venture?
That not likely will happen. It's pretty separate line right there. A lot of people work on both, but
You could use the firehouse to raise money for the ambulance.
Well,
What I'm trying to say.
I mean, I guess the firehouse, yes, it's a community service center, and that's one plus that you do provide for all of us. It's a nice building. I mean, so that you are sharing that building with us every year. We pay utilities with the building.
Well, if you got a pancake feeder or a gambling fee, would you have to use the ambulance people, or could you use some of the fireman's people to try to raise the money, or is that gonna be a problem too?
Well, I think we have enough people. We are 40 strong.
Okay, well, if you got the 40 people, that means you don't need Tarzan to okay it, you could,
No, we don't need any okays from ours.
yeah, you just need a time and a day where you
We
can
would
do
just
some
select-
fundraising,
We
some
use
advertising.
we use the same meeting room they use. So it's
I think you might raise more money than you think.
we're together.
Yeah, I think it would, as long as we, conduct due diligence and make sure that we don't overlap with some of their events.
Right, are you gonna do the pancake feeder or the gambling, cause I'm a hungry guy, I'll come for the pancake.
The FW Sunday morning,
This Sunday you're doing it?
this Sunday.
You're gonna raise money?
22nd.
But no money for the ambulance service, but just for the FW.
Is it for the ambulance or for fire?
Well, that's VFW. Now we got another organization that we're involved in. We're gonna keep all these separate as best we can.
Are you going to the senior center or you going to the firehouse?
We'll go to the senior center.
Yeah, I go there too. Don't worry, I got plenty of money. Just let me know when the game is, I'll be there.
Thank you so much.
You have a great night.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks for your time.
Oh, Lord.
You're positive.
No committee reports, department reports, finance officer.
So at everyone's place setting is the April financials. There really wasn't too many out of the ordinary expenses for April. We did pay $19,586 for the dog park fence. We,
Oh, I got one question. Didn't that lady donate some of the money for the park?
Yep.
Oh, so,
but we took in the money and we,
oh, paid out,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt, sorry.
and then, we finalized the purchase of the sweep ball for $14,100. And we also purchased the 2021 Chevy Tahoe for the police department of $57,213. Those were pretty much the only three large out of the ordinary expenses in April. Hopefully the golf course will keep continuing. And also in May, we'll hope to finalize the liquor store transactions. With the auction.
Need a motion? Shall I make a motion to approve the April 2022 financial report as Elaine Johnson stated?
Motion by Shot, seconded to approve the April 2022 financial report. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Thank you. Old business, concession stand lease.
The reason I probably want him executive is because We have one person as, what time did you come in today? Talk to me probably in the afternoon. We only had one person as of Friday, so we thought we'd just recommend that particular person. Now we have two that we want to look at and a couple other things that we want to talk about. So we'd like to go into executive session, kind of to discuss each of those, and then we'll come out and hopefully have a recommendation to let one of those two groups take over the lease for this summer.
The motion to enter into executive session for contract.
Motion to move into executive session.
Motion by Teeman, seconded to enter into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent.
Jane, you can go in here. You don't have a recorder going or something there.